What is up, guys? Del Boy here. So Gilberto Ramirez defeats Jesse Hart by a majority decision to win their rematch. I know a lot of people weren't looking forward to this fight. I've got to be honest, I didn't really mind this fight. First reason is I really enjoyed the first fight. I felt Ramirez won it and won it clearly, but it was a fun fight. And although there was really no need for a rematch, Jesse Hart is still a better opponent than Gilberto's previous two opponents for this year, who are quite low level. So yeah, I still saw it as a step up from his previous two fights, so I didn't really mind it. And yeah, the fight itself, it was fun, and I actually felt it was a bit closer than the first fight, but again, I believe the right man won. For the most part, Ramirez held his shape better. He was the guy who was trying to force the action for the most part, and to me he always looked like a step ahead. That's not to say Jesse Hart didn't have success. For example, I believe it was in round 7 and 8 where Jesse Hart landed some really good shots. In round 8, Jesse Hart was actually pushing Ramirez back, working the body very well, and at times he was lighting Ramirez up. And it looked like Ramirez was actually hurt in round 8. Also in round 11, Jesse Hart was aggressive, landed some good right hands to the head of Ramirez. And overall, in this fight, I felt Jesse Hart had more moments than he had in the first fight. But nevertheless, I still don't think it was enough. I still felt Ramirez done that bit more. But it was a close fight, in my opinion. What I will say, I believe Jesse Hart has improved from the first fight, but as for Ramirez, has he got any better? Based on that performance, no. Maybe it was because it was a rematch nobody really cared about and Ramirez couldn't get up for it. That's always a possibility, but, you know, to me, it doesn't really look like this guy is improving that much. Maybe when he steps up to the next level, maybe then we will see a raise in his game, but as of right now, you know, to me, I'm not really seeing those improvements. That's not to say I don't rate him, because I do think he's a good fighter. I actually rate him higher than most people do. You know, he's a southpaw, he's long and tall for the weight class, he has decent boxing skills, respectable power, he can counter. You know, he does things well, but he just seems to struggle at times to step through the gears and, you know, make a statement kind of thing. And maybe that will come when he faces higher level competition. You know, sometimes we've all heard this, but sometimes fighters fight down to the level of competition they are facing. I believe that is a real thing. So maybe it's that, or maybe Gilberto Ramirez isn't a strong champion, but time will tell. Where does Gilberto Ramirez go from here? Naturally, I would like to see him take unification fights with the likes of Callum Smith, the Uzcategui versus Caleb Plant winner, the winner of Avni Yildirim versus Anthony Durrell. Those two are fighting for the vacant WBC title, however, I believe David Benavidez will get the first shot at that title, so unifying with the WBC would be a long shot. But either Callum Smith or the winner of Uzcategui versus Caleb Plant, for me they would be good fights. You know, failing that, Gilberto Ramirez has said he would move up to light heavyweight to fight the WBC and lineal light heavyweight champion Alexander Vodzik, so that would be a good fight. Maybe he will step up a division, that's always a possibility. Ramirez is a tall and lanky super middleweight, so he would have no issue fighting at light heavyweight. In fact, he fought Maxim Vlasov at light heavyweight. I know it was a catch weight, but, you know, it was still in that light heavyweight limit, and as we've seen, Vlasov went on to fight at cruiserweight. So yeah, I believe Ramirez can compete at light heavyweight. In fact, it may even be better for him. He may have more strength at that weight class. As Ramirez gets older, you know, it will be harder and harder for him to make 168. And I would still like to see him unify before going up, because Ramirez's reign at 168 has been pretty lackluster. The guy has had 5 title defences and 39 fights, and there's not really too much on his resume. I would say his best wins are Vlasov, Arthur Abraham and Jesse Hart. There's not too much on the resume, so a unification at super middleweight would be nice. I know a lot of people have lost interest in Gilberto Ramirez, and I can see why, but I still hold some interest in his career. I do think he is a good fighter, and you know, he can be involved in some really fun matchups. So yeah, share your thoughts below. I know I didn't really go too much into the fight itself. There's not really too much to say, you know, it was kind of similar to the first fight, but Jesse Hart was a bit more competitive this time around. And by the way, as for Jesse Hart, I actually think he's a good fighter, but you know, where does he go now? Because ultimately he is with Top Rank, and Top Rank don't really have too many options at 168. You know, nobody wants to see a third fight with Ramirez. Can Jesse Hart move up to light heavyweight? I'm not sure. You know, maybe Jesse Hart needs to move on at this point. I believe he is a good fighter. I believe he can at least fight for a title again. I wouldn't pick him to beat any champions right now, but, you know, worse fighters have been world champions. So, yeah, maybe Jesse Hart, it's time for him to move on and sign with a different promoter. I believe Top Rank have taken him as far as they can, and there's not really too much going on that side. So, yeah, maybe it's time for Jesse Hart to look at other options. But yeah, share your thoughts below. Peace.